So, hi everyone, and welcome to another Zoom meeting and another podcast episode. If you want to find out more about the podcast, our online community, or paid private mentoring with myself, you can visit the website on www.acimwithkeith.com. All right, let's get on with our meeting. So, let's be a little festive with the quotations that we look at today in the course. So this is from chapter 15, and it is from section 11, and it's paragraph 1. The sign of Christmas is a star, a light in darkness. See it not outside of yourself, but shining in the heaven within, and accept it as the sign that the time of Christ has come. So we're going to look at a number of different passages that say this same thing today in various different ways. But the star is the symbol of a non-ego presence in your mind. And it's already there. You don't have to put it there. You don't have to merit it. You don't have to accomplish it. You don't have to succeed at anything. It's already there. Is we have a split mind. And they're always present concurrently, but they're dissociated. So you can only identify as one or the other. Now, the right mind is a non-judgmental witness of the wrong mind. So when you are witness to the activity of the mind that pretends to be you with no judgment of it, total non-opposition to it, complete allowing of it, you get to be the right mind. You don't get to be the right mind through anything other than total non-opposition and non-judgment. So that can trip people up sometimes. You cannot be an ego and what you are in the Holy Spirit at the same time. It's one or the other. Never neither, never both. One or the other. Either you are a separate self made out of thoughts, or you are awareness itself in the Holy Spirit. And when you are awareness itself in the Holy Spirit, now the activity of the mind is just ego patterns that you're witnessing without judgment. It's not like it's another self, because you can only be one self. Okay, so there are two apparent selves, but one of them is a total illusion, the one that's made out of thoughts, and the delusion that someone is thinking them. That's not real. They're just thoughts pretending to be someone. Um, so when you are right-minded, all you are observing is ego patterns in the mind. They don't belong to anyone. Nobody owns them. No one is thinking them. They are simply ego patterns that you are bringing to the presence you are in the Holy Spirit by looking on them with no judgment. So let's take another quote from the Course related to that. This is from chapter 15, section 2, paragraph 5. The holy instant has not yet happened to you, yet it will, and you will recognize it with perfect certainty. No gift of God is recognized in any other way. You can practice the mechanics of the holy instant and will learn much from doing so. Yet its shining and glittering brilliance, which will literally blind you to this world by its own vision, you cannot supply. And here it is, all in this instant, complete, accomplished, and given wholly. So this is saying to you, look, you have a forgiveness practice to get on with. And this involves looking at ego patterns in your mind without judgment. Um, Now, what this leads to is an awakening, realizing that you are the star, the non-ego presence in your mind, the one that doesn't have a story, the one that doesn't have a past or a future. Those are thoughts. Um, so nobody is going to have this flash of the holy instant straight away. There's some work to do. And that's what the workbook is for. And the very important early workbook lessons, um, which talk about the importance of disidentifying from the mind, the importance of understanding that nothing your mind is doing is you. All those self-reflective thoughts in there, they're just echoes. They've got nothing to do with anyone. Lesson 4 says these thoughts do not mean anything, which means you don't need to do anything with them because they're nothing, except stop identifying with them. Stop thinking they're true. Stop believing them. Stop thinking you are the one that thinks them, because you don't. They're just ego patterns. They're just echoes. Lesson 52 says, I have no private thoughts, but it's only private thoughts of which I am aware. What can they mean? They do not exist and they mean nothing. If I could just give an injection or a pill to everyone to unlock what A Course in Miracles is saying for them, it would be stop thinking your thoughts can tell you anything that's true. Stop believing them. Stop thinking you're thinking them. Stop thinking you need them. Stop. And I say this every week, and people go, yeah. And they just go right back to thinking they're thinking. But you must understand that the tiny mad idea is a thought, and it gave rise to thoughts of sin, guilt, and fear. And they gave rise to an entire thought system, which is what you hear in your mind. The insane voice talking to itself in your mind, judging itself constantly and everyone else, that's not you. There's no identity in that. You can mix yourself up with it, apparently, but it's got nothing to do with what you are. Because you are the star. And so A Course in Miracles says that the miracle comes quietly into the mind that stops an instant and is still. And it doesn't mean thoughts have to stop, but you have to stop pushing and pulling on them. You have to stop identifying with them. You have to stop thinking if you change them and move them around and put more thoughts in and mix it about that something good is going to come out of that. No, no. Good only comes out of the stopping, the disengaging from the activity of the mind that pretends to be you. It's got nothing to do with you. That's just what the mind does. It just keeps echoing and reflecting and echoing and reflecting and echoing and reflecting. So what? You only have to know it's not you. And that allows the star to come into vision. That makes way for the holy instant. Thoughts are nothing. As lesson 52 says, they do not exist and they mean nothing. As lesson 4 says, the good ones are but shadows of what lie beyond in the star, outside of thoughts, and shadows make sight difficult. And the bad ones are blocks to sight and make seeing impossible. You do not want either. Let thoughts do whatever they want. They have nothing to do with you. If you could hear this today, and underline this today, and understand this today, this will ignite your course practice and the awakening practice Thoughts are nothing. So if you go to war with nothing, you're deluded, okay? Fighting with nothing is ridiculous. It makes nothing seem like it's something when it's nothing. So you can't fight them. You can't try and change them. You can't try and silence them. You do nothing with them to realize that they have no effect on you. You surrender. You allow all things to be exactly as they are, to discover the star, to discover the holy instant, where you realize that conceptual identity is a scam made of thought. So let's take another quotation from the Course. For several minutes, watch your mind and see, even if your eyes are closed, the senseless world you think is real. Review the thoughts as well, which are compatible with such a world of separateness, singularity and fear, and which you think are true. Then let them go and sink below them to the holy place where they, thoughts, can enter not. There is a door beneath them in your mind, which you could not completely lock to hide what lies beyond, your identity outside of concepts. The salvation that is the escape from concepts. Seek for that door and find it. But before you open it, remind yourself no one can fail who seeks to reach the truth. And it is this request you make today. Nothing but this has any meaning now. No other goal is valued now, nor sought. Nothing before this door you really want. And only what lies past it do you seek. Put out your hand and see how easily the door swings open with your one intent to go beyond it. Angels light the way so that all darkness vanishes, because it's all made of thoughts. And you are standing in a light so bright and clear that you can understand all things you see. A tiny moment of surprise, perhaps, will make you pause before you realize the world you see before you in the light reflects the truth you knew and did not quite forget in wandering away in dreams. And the dreams are made of thoughts. So again, the star that is the symbol of Christmas and that the Course is asking you to use as a symbol is for this non-ego presence in your mind, this holy place that thoughts can enter not, which is what you are now. There is only this, and then the illusion of being mixed with thoughts, whereby this holy place seems veiled from you. But it's all that's here. The holy place is all that's here. It's what you are. So the Course describes itself as a course in mind training because the only problem is identification with thoughts that are not real thoughts, that don't exist, and that don't mean anything, that you're not really thinking. And when you think you're thinking them, your mind's blank because you're not the one that's thinking them. They're just thoughts. They're just echoes and they have nothing to do with you. But if you buy into them, if you identify with them, you will think yourself a me, an imaginary separate self that doesn't exist, who suffers, who has lack, who has need and want, and goes out into the world seeking and resisting and grasping and grievances and special love and special hate in a desperate bid to solve the problem of your lack and need and want. And nothing works. It's seek and do not find. Because this whole self is made out of thoughts. It's what the Course calls a self-concept. It is the concept of a me that's here, that is lacking and wanting and needing, and it stands for a self that isn't here, that doesn't exist, that can't be found. And all suffering arises on behalf of a self that doesn't exist. and it's made of thoughts. So if we take another reading from the Course, this is lesson 248. I have disowned the truth. Now let me be as faithful in disowning falsity. What suffers is not part of me. It's a story of a me made out of thoughts. That me doesn't exist. What grieves is not myself. What is in pain is but illusion in my mind. The self that suffers isn't there. It's not what you are. It's a misidentification. It's believing thoughts. It's thinking you're thinking them. What dies, a body, a separate self with a past and a future, what dies was never living in reality. It's a story and did but mock the truth about myself. It has nothing to do with the star. Now I disown self-concepts and deceits and lies about the Holy Son of God. Thoughts. Now I am ready to accept him back as God created him and as he is, free of concepts, free of thought identification. Okay, so let's go back and be a little festive with lesson 303. Watch with me, angels. Watch with me today. Now, angels are a symbol, as we'll see in the next sentence. Let all God's holy thoughts surround me and be still with me while heaven's Son is born. Let earthly sounds be quiet, and let the sights to which I'm accustomed disappear. Let Christ be welcomed here, where he is at home. And let him hear the sounds he understands, and see but sights that show his Father's love. Let him no longer be a stranger here, for he is born again in me today. Your Son is welcome, Father. He has come to save me from the evil self I made. He is the self that you have given me, not the one I have thought myself into, not the one made out of thoughts, ego thought system thoughts, consciousness thoughts. He is the self that you have given me. He is but what I really am in truth. He is the Son you love above all things. He is myself as you created me. It is not Christ that can be crucified. Safe in your arms, let me receive your Son. So this is the symbol of the rebirth of what you are in you. It's got nothing to do with the self that's made out of thoughts, the self-concept. It's what you are outside of concept. It is the holy place that thoughts can enter not. It is the star that's shining in the heaven within, the non-ego presence in your mind. And it's already there. But in today's metaphor from the Course, watch with me, angels, watch with me, we have this symbol of the birth of Christ. It's this realization that nothing you've ever took yourself to be is true. That the only cause of lack and suffering for yourself is a belief in a separate self that doesn't exist, that's made of thoughts. And so there is, the Course is talking about this realization, this birth of something different, this coming to be aware of what you are that's free of all thoughts, that no concept can soil or touch, that is changelessness. So let's take another quote. And this is from, it's The Holiness of Christmas, and it's a poem by Helen Schuckman from The Gifts of God. Christmas is holy only if you come in silence to the manger to behold your holiness made visible to you. Your gifts are but your open hands made clean of grasping, nothing else you lay before the newly born except your doubts and fears, your pale illusions and your sickly pride, your hidden venom and your little love, your meager treasures, your unfaithfulness to all the gifts God has given you. Here at the altar, lay all this aside to let the door to heaven open wide and hear the angels sing of peace on earth, for Christmas is the time of your rebirth. So if you identify with the noise in your mind that you have thought yourself to be all your life, misidentified, you don't get to be reborn as Christ. An illusion can't become Christ. You have to drop the illusion. This is the problem. We're all going, well, I am here. I am the body. I am the thinker of thoughts. I am the separate self among other separate selves. And I'm going to awaken. I'm going to become enlightened. Okay, so that's the spiritualized ego. That's nonsense. An illusion cannot just become truth. The truth is already true, and the illusion needs to be dropped for the truth to unveil itself, for the star to come out in the heavens, for the holy instant to show itself. You know, when we all start on a spiritual path, we all want to have an experience. People are always saying to me, how do I have the experience? How do I have the experience? Okay, it's the story, it's the me, the individual made out of thoughts that wants to have an experience. But what you are is not an experience. So for you to know what you are, you have to let go of what you're not. And so to know what you are is to let go of wanting an experience. Wanting an experience is part of the illusion. It says, I think I'm an illusion and I want to have an experience of the truth. No, let go of the illusion. And the truth awaits on recognition. Stop looking for an experience. That's part of the dream. That's part of the virtual reality world made of thoughts. All seeking is of the ego. And so to know what you are is surrender, surrendering any desire for an experience. Because what you are is already here. It's already the non-ego presence in your mind. It's been covered over by you thinking that you are thinking thoughts, that they're true, that they make a powerful contribution to the truth, and that you're the one thinking them. But they're all just thoughts. None of that's true. So what are you if nothing thoughts are saying has any identity in it? What if thoughts are just echoes going on And what if there's no identity in them whatsoever? Now what are you? This is the holy place that thoughts can enter not. It's already here. Already here. You need only recognize that you're not the one that's thinking thoughts. They just happen all by themselves. And they mean nothing. And they belong to no one. If I could just give that as an injection, if I could just give that as a pill, they're nothing. Nothing. What's here? If that's as much part of the appearances as the body and the world, thoughts, they all go together as the illusion, the virtual reality world. What are you if thoughts have nothing to do with you? If there's no identity in them? If there is no thinker, what are you? That's the star. That's the holy instant. That's coming in silence to the manger. Silence. Again, the miracle comes quietly into the mind that stops an instant and is still. Because in that moment of stillness, it recognizes the truth of what it is. Problem is we start identifying with thoughts and thinking we're thinking, and then we're asking our thoughts, what can I do to find out what I am? We ask our thoughts, how am I doing? And they're nothing. They don't make a powerful contribution to the truth. Because the truth is outside thoughts, and it's already here. It can't be missing, and it's shining in everything in this moment, that truth that's outside of thoughts. And you're not separate from that. And the only problem is you think you're thinking. You think you're a me made out of thoughts. As lesson 93 says, the self you've made out of thoughts is not the Son of God. And therefore, this self does not exist at all. It is neither bad nor good. It is unreal and nothing more than that. So, what's here when thoughts stop? Your thoughts aren't going to stop today, but what's here if none of your thoughts are believed? What's here if no thought is believed? What's here if you refuse to let any thought drag you into unconsciousness in it? It's already what you are. You've just been addicted to thinking you're thinking and thinking thoughts are helpful and that you should indulge them and ask them for help and believe them. So let's take another quote. So, in that Christmas poem, Christmas is holy only if you come in silence to the manger, to behold your holiness made visible to you. It's made visible to you in silence. That does not mean thoughts have to stop. This is the trap. Thoughts are nothing to do with you. You stop. You stop thinking you have thoughts about your thoughts, thinking you're waging a war against thoughts, thinking that they're important enough to wage a war with them, that they're important enough to silence them or change them. They're nothing. They're nothing. The silence we're talking about has nothing to do with the insane voice talking to itself in your mind, pretending to be you. It is that which is witness to the insane voice talking to itself in total non opposition, total non judgment, total allowing. That's your right mind. That's the star. Now you've come in silence to the manger. Don't worry about thoughts. That's what they do. They echo and reflect and pretend to be you. Let them. So what? You come in silence to the manger by beholding what the mind is doing with no judgment of it, no opposition to it, complete non resistance to it. This is what you are. It's not that the star is going to stop opposing and stop judging. Rather, it is that in non opposition and non judgment, you discover that the star isn't capable of opposition or judgment. That the star, by its very nature, can oppose nothing and includes everything. And that's what you already are, except you keep believing thoughts and thinking you're thinking them. So the same message is echoed in many places in the course. Lesson 189. Simply do this. Be still. Lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is, all concepts you've learned about the world, all images you hold about yourself. Empty your mind of everything it thinks is either true or false, or good or bad, of every thought it judges worthy, and all the ideas of which it is ashamed. Hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, nor one belief you have ever learned before from anything. Forget this world, forget this course, and come with wholly empty hands unto your God. That's it. That's it. Simply do this. Stop believing thoughts. Stop getting involved in them. Stop believing them. When you find that you've gone unconscious in them, stop justifying it. Stop tolerating it. Come straight back here to the holy place where thoughts can enter not. How do I do that? Look at thoughts and don't oppose them. Do nothing about them. To remember what you are that can't oppose. What you are here isn't thinking. Yes, there's mad thoughts going on in the mad mind, but that's not you. It's not even a mind. It's just thoughts. It seems like a mind when you assume I am the one thinking the thought system of the ego. Separateness thoughts about me and God and good and bad and right and wrong. And no one's thinking those thoughts. That's the ego thought system. There is no ego. There is no separate self. There's just thoughts. And you mix yourself up with them, you think you're an ego. But you're not an ego. The atonement's done. It's finished. It was over the moment it seemed to happen. Simply do this. Stop getting involved in thoughts. Again, if I could just have you understand that message today, that this is what it's all about. Thoughts will tell you you couldn't operate like that. There's no way you can be without thoughts. You can, but it's an entirely different identity. So the wrong mind is believing yourself to be an individual, me, with a tragic story of victimhood and a frightening future. Okay, so that's ego. So that's the wrong mind. Now you have a right mind. It's not the ultimate truth of what you are, okay, but we don't skip steps. You have a right mind. And the right mind is that you are consciousness itself. That's the right mind. You are consciousness itself. So now there's no separation because one consciousness is here, appearing as everything and everyone. And by you knowing what you are as consciousness, you know everyone is the same consciousness you are. That's the Holy Spirit. Okay? That's your right mind. So your right mind has nothing to do with your wrong mind, except that it witnesses those ego patterns that have no identity in them with no judgment. So you don't have to get rid of ego patterns in your mind. You don't have to shout down the thoughts. But in your non-opposition to them, non-judgment of them, forgiveness of them, you come to know that you are consciousness, the same consciousness everyone is. That there's no identity in those ego patterns in your mind, those thoughts about past and future, and right and wrong and good and bad, and me and you. They're all just thoughts. This is the holy instant. And again, forgiveness is how you prepare your mind for this awakening, this seeing of the star, this holy instant, this fundamental shift in what you take yourself to be. No longer a story. And it's already in your mind. It's already what you are. You just have to undo identification and belief and thoughts. Forgiveness is how you get here. You have to learn how to witness. I mean, ultimately, it's to witness the world without any opposition to it, without any sense that it should be different, that it should be otherwise. The end of the journey is all things working together for good, no exception. Nothing inside is resisting anymore. That's the end of ego. That's ego gone. That's the real world. Okay. But until then, you understand that the world is doing what it's doing and it's all things working together for good. And now there's going to be huge egoic opposition in the mind. There's going to be suffering coming up and trying to blame the world. And so until such time as there is no opposition to the world, now you must not oppose the opposition in your mind. Until such time as the world is forgiven, your task is the forgiveness of the opposition of the ego. To be the right mind, non-judgmentally witness to the ego patterns of resistance and suffering and guilt and hatred. Now again, A Course in Miracles makes no sense until you understand that if you choose the Holy Spirit as your teacher, if you're going to embark on an awakening, the first thing you have to do is shift the purpose of the world. It should be happening. It's giving you exactly what you need in this moment to awaken and undo sin, guilt, and fear in your mind at all times. I don't care what's happening. That's perfect. Until you do that, the course doesn't make any sense. Why would your body bother forgiving anything? The beginning place is the world is has only the purpose of the awakening of God's Son from thoughts. It's the only purpose of it. It has no other purpose. It's not for people to become this and people to become that and people to have good lives and people to have happy lives and people to have healthy lives. There's no people. There is an appearance of people. One Son of God is the truth of all of them. And that one Son of God is awakening to himself from the dream of being 8 billion people. You are that Son of God. Everything else is just believed thoughts that cause you to misperceive yourself and think that you lack and suffer, and then blame all the others for how lacking and suffering that you are. But you can't suffer. The self that needs protection is not real. The self made out of thoughts is not real. Nothing thoughts tell you about what you are true. They can only tell you what you're not. Because what you are, nothing can say outside of concept. It is the holy place thoughts can enter not, and you're already that. And so is everyone. That's the truth of everyone right now. The one star is shining in the one heaven. You are the star. You have thought yourself the darkness. A body and a story made of thoughts. That's not what you are. That's just thought misidentification. It's just a self concept. It's nothing. It doesn't apply to anyone. It's not about anyone. You're the star. And maybe you can begin to get a sense of that non ego presence, that star in your mind now. And thoughts will try and tell you lots of different things about that star. Listen to us. We're going to give you a powerful contribution to the truth. We're going to tell you about the star. We're going to tell you why you're not worthy of the star. We're going to tell you why you can't ever know the star. And they're just thoughts, they're nothing. And you already are the star. Just don't believe thoughts. Just recognize them and go, oh, they're just thoughts. So they're nothing. That's it. They're just thoughts. That's the most powerful thing to know. Thoughts are just thoughts. So what? So they're nothing. They don't tell me the truth. They veil the truth from itself. Let's see if we take another quote. This is from lesson 182. And this again uses the metaphor of Christ being born in you. And it talks about Christ as a child that needs your protection. Because obviously, this is a metaphor. Obviously, Christ is not a child. Obviously, Christ doesn't need protection from anyone. But when this star blinks into view at first in you, and you're learning to not let thoughts obscure it, it's it requires vigilance. You have to be vigilant against believing thoughts to keep this star in your awareness. So for the first while, this non-ego presence in your mind, it's not going to be dramatic. As I've often said before, there's going to be no choirs of angels singing the Hallelujah chorus, no 1812 symphony with fireworks. Okay. It's a very quiet recognition that there is a part of my mind that thoughts never touch. There is an essence of what I am that has been the same when I was 2 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, 40-year old, 50 years old. There's one essential aspect of what I am that's not changing. That's the star. And so as we begin to recognize this as the memory of what I am, we have to foster it, look after it, keep coming back to it, keep undoing our identification with thoughts. And so in this way, it's like we're looking after a child. So that's the metaphor. So lesson 182. I'm just not going to read the whole thing. It's a long lesson, but let's take it from here. He, Christ, baby that's being born in you, will wait until you hear his gentle voice within you, calling you to let him go in peace, along with you, to where he is at home, and you with him. When you are still an instant, which has nothing to do with thoughts, when you are still an instant, when the world recedes from you, when valueless ideas cease to have value in your restless mind, then will you hear his voice. So poignantly, he calls to you that you will not resist him longer. In that instant, he will take you to his home, and you will stay with him in perfect stillness, silent and at peace, beyond all words, untouched by fear and doubt. Thoughts. Sublimely certain that you are at home. Rest with him frequently today. For he was willing to become a little child that you might learn of him how strong is he who comes without defenses, offering only love's messages to those who think he is their enemy. He holds the might of heaven in his hand and calls them friend and gives his strength to them that they may see he would be friend to them. It's what we do in our forgiveness practice. Those who do not know what they are, who do not know about the star, who do not know about the holy place that thoughts can enter not, find themselves misidentified, they are in pain, and they are calling out for love, not knowing it is the essence of what they are. And A Course in Miracles is saying you should be grateful to those who think they are attacking you. This is your opportunity to bring more love to both of you. So instead of condemning them when they've already condemned themselves, you bless them and give them your strength by seeing the truth of what they are as the holy place that thoughts can enter not. He asks that they protect him, for his home is far away, and he will not return to it alone. Christ is reborn as but a little child each time a wanderer in thoughts would leave his home. So we're like a wanderer, like the prodigal son. We've gone out from the truth of what we are into thoughts and sensations and feelings and forgotten what we are. But the truth of what we are is reborn as but a little child each time a wanderer would leave his home. For he must learn that what he would protect is but this child, this non-ego presence, who comes defenseless and who is protected by defenselessness. Go home with him from time to time today. You are as much an alien here as he. Take time today to lay aside your shield, which profits nothing, and lay down the spear and sword you raised against an enemy without existence. Because this child is the truth of everyone. Christ has called you friend and brother. He has even come to ask your help in letting him go home today, completed and completely. Because Christ is the only thing that's true of everyone. He has come, as does a little child, who must beseech his father for protection and for love. He rules the universe, and yet he asks unceasingly that you return with him. So again, this is a metaphor. It's your own true identity calling you home to yourself from experience, from the delusion of thought identification, from misperception of yourself. You have not lost your innocence. It is for this you yearn. This is your heart's desire. The holy place where thoughts can enter not, which shines as the truth of everything and everyone. This is your heart's desire. Everything you've ever sought for in the world was to regain a sense of innocence that seems like it's been lost, and it hasn't. In the psychotherapy pamphlet, it says, and who could weep but for his innocence? We made a world of sad symbols to cover over the real cause of our sadness, which is the loss, the perceived loss of this innocence. But it's waiting for you outside of thought identification. This is the voice you hear, and this is the call which cannot be denied. The Holy Child remains with you. His home is yours. Today, he gives you his defenselessness, and you accept it in exchange for all the toys of battle you have made. Thoughts. And now the way is open, and the journey has an end in sight at last. Be still an instant and go home with him and be at peace a while. Lesson 109. I rest in God. This thought has the power to wake the sleeping truth in you, the star, the holy place that thoughts can enter not. This thought has power to wake the sleeping truth in you, whose vision sees beyond appearances to that same truth in everyone and everything there is. Here is the end of suffering for all the world and everyone who ever came and yet will come to linger for a while. Here is the thought in which the Son of God is born again to recognize himself. And so this is journey's end for everyone who seems to come here. I rest in God. My identity is the holy place that thoughts can enter not. No longer involved with an ego thought system. Sin, guilt, and fear, self and other, good and bad, right and wrong, holy and unholy. That's the journey's end. You don't get involved with them anymore. You rest in God. And outside of thoughts, the truth that you discover here, whether thoughts are still ranting or not, doesn't matter. That's not you. In your disidentification with the mind that pretends to be you, you discover a truth that's shining already as the truth of everything and everyone there ever appeared to be or ever will appear to be. That's it. That's journey's end. So the course uses Christmas and the birth of a child as a symbol for you, the prodigal son, returning home to yourself from the adventure of believing your thoughts. Misadventure. So you have thought yourself into an ego, a separate self, amongst other egos, guilty to a lot of them. What are the other? Um, so the course says tolerance for pain may be high, but it's not without limit. Eventually, everyone begins to recognize that there must be another way. If you continue to misperceive what you are, you will suffer until there comes a point where that suffering reaches its critical mass, where you will be ready for the other way, which is to stop engaging with thoughts, stop believing them, and look for the star, holy place where thoughts can enter not. And it's discovered so easily. All you have to do is not judge or oppose the judging and opposing mind that pretends to be you. What forgives the unforgiving thing cannot be the unforgiving thing. It's the light of the world that's shining already in everything. It's what you are already. Your thoughts can't take you here. Only your forgiveness of thoughts can take you here. And you get here by realizing you're already here. Star is already in your heaven. So when when I reached my critical mass of suffering and was ready to say there must be another way, and to then actually do what the course is teaching, because I spent 30 years learning what the course was saying, loving what the course is saying, arguing with people on the internet about what the course is saying. Okay. But I wasn't doing what the course was saying. I didn't spend my day resting in God. I didn't notice every single upset and go, oh, let me drop projection onto the world. It's showing me this so I can be with it in total forgiveness, that it be undone. I wasn't doing that. 30 years, I was not doing that. When something needed to be forgiven, I was like, well, I'm not forgiving that. And God has no right to ask me. And I'm not doing it. But I love the course. I think it's great. I think it's beautiful. Gonna argue with people on the internet about it. It's fab. But I wasn't gonna do forgiveness until the suffering got bad enough. The voice in your head isn't you. Thinking it is the cause of all your pain and your suffering. And the fact that you think you're on a journey to become what you already are. And it's all a big illusion made out of thought identification. Now, again, I didn't do this for one day or one week or one month. And suddenly there was this star that was blinding the holy instant. That didn't happen. But I kept saying, no matter what happened in life, okay, that should be happening. And there is a lot of opposition and pain in the wrong mind. But what does that have to do with the star? What does it have to do with the holy place that thoughts can enter not? As many of you know, I used Ken's metaphor. What does it have to do with the me that's in the cinema with Jesus? The one thing I got was that in the cinema, there's no thoughts. The me that's in the cinema with Jesus, there's no thinking going on here. This is just another symbol for the star, for the non ego presence. And then it was blinding. The holy instant was blinding. And and the real world started bleeding through my illusion made of thoughts. But I did what A Course in Miracles says to do. I understood. I was ready to say it's too painful to be Keith anymore. It's too painful to stay with these thoughts and make a self out of it and think it's what I am. I'm ready to learn what I really am because this sucks. So when people come to me for coaching and they tell me about suffering and anxiety, I always go, well, that's grace. That's a blessing. Because most people listening to this have convinced themselves that they're not suffering that much. That life's all right. It's like it's grand, as we say in Ireland, which doesn't mean it's grand. It means it's okay. You know, it's like I'm hanging in there, struggling, getting by. And and so as David Thoreau says, most men live lives of quiet desperation. Quiet desperation. But when the suffering comes, that's grace. Maybe it's physical pain. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's depression. When the suffering comes, that's grace. Because there's a chance now that you're ready to say, this self made out of thoughts, I'm done. There's a chance you'll be ready to realize that the self you've made out of thoughts can't be fixed, can't be happy, can't be improved because it's an illusion of yourself. And you, Holy Son of God, can never be satisfied with an illusion of yourself. So that's the Course's Christmas message to us. And again, if I could just bottle that and give it to people as a dose and go, listen, stop believing thoughts. Stop thinking they're helpful. Stop asking them for advice. They're nothing. They're useless. They're not you. With every thought that arises the thought that you are the one thinking it. But you're not. There's no one thinking it. It means nothing. It's not a real thought. When you think you're thinking it, your mind is blank, lesson eight, because it's not really thinking about it at all. No one's thinking them. They're just meaningless echoes, and your job is learning to forgive them, not fight them, not eradicate them, not change them, to go, but that's thoughts, that's nothing. So I've never claimed to be an enlightened guru. I still find myself indulging thoughts, and then I go, oh, but these are just thoughts. And then they just fall away completely. And that's just by practicing this. They don't, even though I can still go unconscious in them for a few moments, the minute there's a discomfort, I'm like, oh, these are just thoughts. So that's nothing to do with anything. And then that's peace. Because you can be hurt by nothing but your thoughts. Course in Miracles. You can be hurt by nothing but thoughts. Lesson four. The good ones are shadows of what lies beyond in that star, in that holy instant, in that holy place that thoughts can enter not. The good ones, whatever thoughts your mind is telling you about it, they're but shadows of what lies outside of thoughts. And the bad ones are blocks to sight and make seeing impossible. You don't want either. Stop indulging your thoughts. Stop it. Stop believing them. Stop thinking you're thinking them. When they're happening, you just go, oh, well, they're just thoughts. So that's nothing. What does it have to do with me? You only thought you were thinking them, and thus misperceived yourself completely as a self that doesn't exist, a self you made out of thoughts. That's not the Son of God. But that Son of God is waiting to be reborn in you as the truth of what you are. And staying outside of thoughts is key. Not by stopping them, by forgiving them, by going, well, that's just thoughts. That's it. Don't fight them. Don't try to eradicate them. Don't try to get rid of them. You go, that's just thoughts. So that's nothing. Doesn't mean there's not going to be suffering. That doesn't mean the sin, guilt, and fear in your mind's not going to still be here. And thoughts are going to be waiting, going, let us take that off you. Let's find some patsy to blame in the world instead of yourself. Okay? That's still going to happen. But your job is still the same. Don't get involved in thoughts. Witness the suffering of the ego in your mind and don't oppose it. And don't believe thoughts about it. I tell you it's because of what's happening in the world. It's got nothing to do with what's happening in the world. What's happening in the world is showing you the suffering that's already here. And your job is to thank the world for its holy purpose of showing you what's already in your mind, not causing it. That's the lie. That's what thoughts will tell you. You are a perfectly happy ego, and this person came along and they did that to you, and behold, you're suffering. And if they did no right, people shouldn't do this. People should do that. If that's happening, that should be happening. So you can see this ego fixation and suffering in your mind and have it be undone by non opposition, by not getting involved in thoughts that want to tell you lies about you as a separate self in the world and about all the other guilty ones out there that are after causing your suffering. Thoughts, nonsense. None of it's true. So thoughts are not our friend. Now, when you have When you have discovered the star, the holy place where thoughts can enter not, once you've discovered this, now thoughts fall into service of what you know yourself to be. Now they're helpful. Until that time, do not trust them. Do not think they have anything to do with you. Do not ask them for advice. Do not do any of that. They will twist everything. You must understand the holy place where thoughts can enter not. From here, thoughts can be in service to the holy place in you and in everyone where thoughts can enter not. So, thought makes a good servant. It makes a really awful, tyrannical master. So keep coming home to rest in God. These are just thoughts. Let me allow them to be exactly what they are. Let me totally forgive them. Let me oppose nothing. Let me allow all things to be exactly as they are, and what you are will tell you of itself. And it's here. It's the star that's shining in your mind. So this Christmas, let us settle for nothing short of that star. Let us settle for no identity made out of thoughts, but let us foster and protect that child within us, this non-ego presence. We grow into it through forgiveness, through looking at what the wrong mind is doing with no judgment of it. Because what's looking? The wrong mind can't look without judgment. So what witnesses the activity of the mind with no judgment of it or opposition to it isn't the mind. It's not the wrong mind. It's the right mind. But there's no thinking going on here. Cool. We haven't anyone's hand up yet. Would anyone like to ask a question or contribute? Or have I terrified everyone? Yeah, Tanya. So you'll get an invite to unmute yourself now from Linda.
Thank you so much, Keith. That was just incredible. Would you maybe talk a bit about the chooser, the aspect of the mind, I guess, that chooses right mind? When you talk about the you, are you sort of referring to that, or is that even, you know, useful to think about? I just trying to integrate that
Yeah.
aspect of my mind.
So there's a wrong mind and there's a right mind. So clearly there is a choice about what you are. Now, when we're talking about consciousness, consciousness is the split mind. Consciousness is the decision maker. Consciousness is the dreamer of the dream. So, so to begin with, the course is talking to you as consciousness. And it's saying you consciousness can view yourself as a character in your dream, or you can know yourself as the dreamer of the dream. So that's your consciousness split into the wrong mind and the right mind. And the course is saying, listen, be the right mind as a non-judgmental witness to the wrong mind, and this is forgiveness, and this will undo it. However, ultimately, there is no separate mind. Um, and even ultimately, there is no consciousness. Um, but that would be after the real world. So the real world would be one consciousness as the truth of everything and everyone, no separateness anywhere. The forms, the broken pieces seem to take me nothing, for the whole is in each one, and every aspect of the Son of God is just the same as every other part. Well, that's already what's here. That's already what the Holy Spirit's viewpoint is. Um, so that's consciousness. The course talks to you as consciousness, not as a person. It talks to you as the consciousness that's dreamer of the entire dream. Um, so it's a bit like, well, think I'm a dream figure. I think I'm a body. I think this insane voice talking to itself in my mind is true. I think I have a past made of thoughts and a future made of thoughts, and I have problems and lack and need and want. And the course is going, yeah, but you can identify, you don't have to identify as a dream figure like that, made of thoughts. Forgiveness can bring you home to know yourself as consciousness itself. And when you know what you are, you look out and you realize, well, there's only one consciousness here, and it's the truth of everyone. Um, so that's our first. So it's learning to know yourself as I am, not I am this, not I am that, but I am. That's the right mind. The right mind is I am. The wrong mind is I am this and I am that and I'm lacking and I'm needing and I'm better and I'm worse and I'm good and I'm bad. The right mind is going, no, there was a thought. I am. This is the holy place that thoughts can enter not. This is the sanctity that no I am this or I am that illusion can touch. And it is the truth of what everything and everyone is. I am. Now, that's still consciousness. Um, but from here, even consciousness can fall away. But that's not our task. Our task is to undo the wrong mind by being the right mind, which is not blaming the world for the suffering in the wrong mind, and which is not opposing the wrong mind, which is forgiving the wrong mind. The Course says, through Him, the Holy Spirit, the symbol of your right mind, through Him, you learn how to forgive the self you think you made and let it disappear. So that's our work with A Course in Miracles. So at some point, consciousness falls out completely. Um, and then there would be no sense of a wrong-minded self or a right-minded self. There wouldn't be I am. I am is still consciousness. It's the highest expression of consciousness, but it's still consciousness. It's what will undo the delusion of I am this and I am that. It will be undone by I am, the right mind. And then even the I am falls out. And then that is the absolute. That is God. So I hope that answers the question. Tanya, I see you're back muted again. Um, hope that answers the question.
Super helpful. So basically so I'm back in, like, when I do fall back into ego identification, if I notice it that instant and decide, oh wait, I'm in the ego, is that the chooser? And even if, does it even matter? Or is that the right mind going, hey, you fell asleep again? Or maybe it's not even important.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the right mind isn't thinking.
Okay.
um, so, but the minute you notice that you've been unconscious in thoughts, thinking you're thinking them and thinking them, the minute you notice that, well, you're right. You are the right mind. Now,
Yes.
will you dive back into thoughts or will you rest in God? Even as the fireworks display of ego patterns flares, can you be present and totally forgiving of it? Because the minute you are, you get to slip out of apparent identification with thoughts and feel the truth of what you are as the holy place that thoughts can enter not. Even in the midst of thoughts, even in the midst of suffering and sin, guilt, and fear and ego fixation, the minute there's no opposition to it, no pushing or pulling on it, no trying to fix it, the minute you're not in the flypaper, you are in the holy place that thoughts can enter not. You are
Yeah.
what is witness to ego patterns without judgment. And they fall away before that. Um, so this is purely knowing your identity is totally independent and divorced from thoughts. That's what this is. It's pure separating your identity out from concepts to know I am. And you do that even in the midst of the suffering and pain caused by I am this and I am that. And by you knowing what you are through forgiveness, non opposition, by you feeling, by you knowing the right mind, being the right mind, in the middle of the ego patterns and the wrong mind and the suffering and the sin, guilt, and fear, they all fall before what doesn't oppose them.
Yes.
So we do nothing except forgive. We witness everything. We hide nothing. We look away from nothing. But we witness with no opposition, with no agenda. We allow without judgment, without fighting, without trying to change anything, without trying to alter anything. We forgive all things exactly as they are to remember what we are. And then that changes everything. Everything that's not this begins to fall away.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Thank you so much for all of it, Keith. Thank you so much. Yes.
Sure. Right, Linda. So do you want to give Lana an invitation to unmute?
Yes. Okay, Lana.
Hi, Keith. This is just semantics, and it's probably a dumb question, but I've always been confused by this particular protect the Christ child within. So, is the Christ child that is, I understand, as synonymous with the quiet center, but what is it, which is also synonymous with the Holy Spirit? So, what is it that's protecting the quiet center? Is that the decision maker? And is the decision maker synonymous with consciousness, right consciousness or right-mindedness? I think I'm in the flypaper.
No, I mean,
I'm sorry.
look, yes to everything that you've said there. Ultimately, the only mind that's split is consciousness. So that's the one that's split between the ego and the Holy Spirit. Because from the egoic perspective, or from within the ego thought system of consciousness, you could think about consciousness as a computer, and it has two different operating systems. And one operating system says separateness is real. And then it can flip over, and there's another operating system that says there's no separateness anywhere. Um, so, so consciousness is the decision maker. Now, ultimately, there's not even consciousness. There's only God as the truth of all of creation. But again, we're not skipping steps. That's not our job, is to try and, wake up in heaven, because the one who would wake up in heaven doesn't exist. You already are the kingdom of heaven. It's just that you believe thoughts and you think that illusions are you. But they're not. Um, so the thing to understand is that the Course constantly says things like, my brother, choose again. Choose again. Choose again what you are and you'll see the world differently. Notice that you're choosing to be an ego. By forgiving the decision for the ego, your right mind is here and you can operate from here. And from here, you can see that this is the truth of everyone. The world is a different place. So my brother, choose again. Choose again what you are so you can know what your brother is. So clearly, the Course is addressing itself to a decision maker. Now, let me say, ultimately, ego, Holy Spirit, decision maker, none of this is true. None of this is true, okay? Because this mind doesn't even exist. And that's why the Course says this. Let me dig out a quote here. It's from the clarification of terms, clarification 1, paragraph 2. In this world, because the mind is split, now it's this, in this world, because the mind is split, the sons of God appear to be separate, nor do their minds seem to be joined. In this illusory state, the concept of an individual mind seems to be meaningful. It is therefore described in the Course as if it has two parts, spirit and ego. As if. So ultimately, the wrong mind is illusion, the right mind is illusion, and the one that apparently is choosing is an illusion. However, we've fallen down the ladder. We're at the bottom of the ladder. We think we are a body and an insane voice talking to itself. We think our thoughts are true, and we think that what they're telling us about the world and what we are, that it's true. So the Course is saying, okay, what you want to do is you want to identify as a right mind. And to do that, you look at the entire drama that the wrong mind is putting up and you surrender to it. You forgive it. You don't oppose it. And something else is here that's not an ego presence. That's your right mind. Now, this is not the truth of what you are, but it is the memory of what you are. So the right mind is the memory of what you are in the midst of what you're not. So ultimately, consciousness can be wrong-minded or right-minded. You can know yourself as a separate self made out of thoughts or as awareness itself. Okay, so that's that. Both of those are constantly available here to you. In truth, there's not a consciousness or a you that's going, will I be an individual or will I be awareness? Will I be an individual or be awareness? Let me weigh it up. No. Okay. That would just be ego. That would be still thinking you're a separate self. So ultimately, there is only consciousness, the decision maker, either right-minded or wrong-minded. It's never neither. So there's nothing going, will I be an individual or will I be awareness? There's never that, because either you know yourself as a self made out of thoughts or you know yourself as awareness itself. Never neither and never both at the same time. So even when you know yourself as awareness itself, then you will be aware of ego patterns running in the mind, fear and judgment and hatred, but there's no identity in it. So the right mind is a non-judgmental awareness of the wrong mind. So it doesn't mean that the right mind isn't aware of the wrong mind. It's just that there's no identity now in the wrong mind. These are just ego patterns.
Yes.
So again, there is no, it's not like there's three parts to consciousness. It's that it's either wrong-minded or right-minded. And the only way for you to come home to the right mind is to choose against the wrong mind. But to do that, you must first look at the wrong mind with no judgment of it, no opposition to it. Only that can remind you of what you are where there's no opposition, awareness itself. So now the alternative choice is available, but it only comes available through the total non-opposition to and forgiveness of the ego. In other words, once I'm identified with the ego and I think I'm thinking, then there's nothing I can do to think my way out of the problem of thinking I'm a thinker and I'm a self that doesn't exist. There's no way out. The only way out is to do what the ego can't do, which is to witness something with no judgment of it, no opinion on it, no condemnation of it, no labeling of it. To witness the activity of thoughts with no thoughts about them. That's the quiet center. That's the star. And then once that's back available to you as a choice through forgiveness, then when you accept this as what you are and not what thoughts are telling you, then that's the holy instant. But
Okay.
there is no such thing as a decision maker that's standing on its own going, will I be the wrong mind or the right mind? There's just wrong minded and right minded. And so the minute
Okay.
you choose against the wrong mind, which is choosing against thought identification, you are automatically the right mind. The minute there is looking or witnessing with no judgment, no condemnation, no labeling, no opposition, the minute that's here, you are the right mind. So again, all you have to do is undo your mistaken identification with the mind that pretends to be you, which is just thoughts, and you are the right mind.
And the right mind is the quiet center.
Yes. So
Okay,
you
which
never,
is
it's not like you have to go, well, let me let go of thought identification and let me choose to be the right mind. The minute you let go of thought identification, you are the right mind.
okay.
The minute you
Okay,
look
thank
with
you.
no judgment, you are the right mind. Because only the right mind can look with no judgment. The ego can't do that. So what witnesses the ego, the thing that cannot forgive, what witnesses the unforgiving thing with total forgiveness cannot be the ego. So forgiveness is how we literally change our mind, how we undo our identification as a self made out of thoughts with a past and a future, and we thinking it's thinking, and then we let that go in the holy instant. And the minute your identity is removed from thinking that you're thinking and sin, guilt, and fear and separateness and thoughts, you automatically are the right mind. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it's helpful. So
Yeah,
thank you very much.
yeah. So all you ever have to do is undo your identification with the ego mind, which is just thought identification, and you are the right mind. Now, there's still going to be the activity of the wrong mind, but you are what witnesses it. There's no identity in it. And it will be undone by what you are that doesn't oppose. So thanks, Lana.
Thank you.
Okay, so shall we go to Kim then, please, Linda?
Kim?
Hi, Kim.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. Hi, everybody. So I was just last night, it's the second time I've talked about my sleep, which is kind of weird, but time before I was just having a lot of fear coming up, and you really let me know that this was actually a good thing, that it my sin, guilt, and fear coming up for healing. And so I've actually been sleeping a lot better. But then last night, early in the night, I was sleeping and I woke up out of a sound sleep or whatever, not even a sound sleep, but just like a half-ass sleep. And and I had this huge amount of fear coming up. I mean, it felt like I was being annihilated. The heartbeat, the sweating, the whole, and instead of like going into, I mean, I definitely felt the fear, and I realized it was my own sin, guilt, and fear coming up for healing. And it was just like I just stayed with it. I didn't have a story about it. I didn't feel threatened by it. I just felt like, oh, this is an opportunity. I'm so happy. And it lasted, I can't tell you how long it lasted, probably not very long. And then I went to sleep and slept great the rest of the night. So I just want to thank you because this stuff really does work.
Well, I want to thank you for letting everyone know that this stuff works, because that's perfect.
Awesome.
Because that's all the course is saying is look at what the wrong mind is doing and don't oppose it. And don't believe thoughts that are trying to blame the world for it. And that's it. And so the Course says, through him you learn how to forgive the self you think you made, and let it disappear. And that's exactly what you did, and that's perfect. And that was what I learned to do through Ken Wapnick when I had the anxiety disorder. And I just did that every single day. I didn't oppose it. I went, so there's anxiety here, but what does that have to do with the peaceful place that's witness to it? And the peaceful place that was witness to it, what's in the cinema with Jesus, if you like the metaphor, but remember what's in the cinema with Jesus isn't thinking. It's the non-ego presence. And it was just, it was giving the anxiety permission to be here. It's like, okay, it's here. I'm not going to oppose that. I'm not going to listen to thoughts about it. I'm going to be present for it, and I'm going to forgive it. And it dissolved. Thank God. So I have been telling people for the last 2.5 years that it works, and thank you, Kim, for telling everyone
Yeah.
that it works.
And,
And
I
do
have
that with
to,
everything.
yeah, I just want to add one last thing is this
Yeah,
realization that before when this would happen, I really felt like I was being punished.
yeah,
And now it's just like the whole like changing the purpose of like this is an opportunity because the sin, guilt, and fear is already here. And last night I felt like I just healed a huge chunk of it. And
yeah.
then today I feel so much lighter.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible how that happens. Is that when a huge chunk does come up, we tend to go into a bit of a panic and go, why is my usual forgiveness not working and why is it not disappearing? If it's a huge chunk, then it's going to be here for a while. And you sit in the middle of it and you don't judge it and you don't listen to thoughts telling you why everyone else is to blame. It's ego identification. It's an ego fixation, and this is the suffering associated with it. And you're going to witness it with no judgment of it for as long as it takes until it dissolves. And that's perfect. And we do that with everything. I don't care if it's shame that's coming up, if it's fear that's coming up, if it's sadness that's coming up, if it's anger that's coming up, whatever is coming up, it gets forgiven. And that means it's not opposed, and we don't listen to any thoughts telling us why the world did it to us. The world is showing it to us. So, again, perfect point there, Kim, in terms of the world has a purpose. It has no meaning, it means nothing. It has a purpose, which is that it's for awakening. It's to see sin, guilt, and fear, the first shield of oblivion against the truth of what you are, without its protection, the second shield of oblivion, which is the world that can be blamed with thoughts. And by our seeing the sin, guilt, and fear within, where it is, and not in the world, where it's not, it will dissolve. The reason it hasn't dissolved is because we kept thinking the world did it to me. We kept projecting, and projected fear and projected guilt, that can't be undone. But the minute it's looked inside me without the thoughts and without me opposing it, without me going to war with it, without me trying to fix it, in the moment it's forgiven, it starts dissolving. So perfect. Thank you very much for sharing that, Kim. Okay, so we just have one question in the chat box, Linda. Is that it?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
so let's take that and then we'll draw a line under it for today.
Okay. This is from Melissa. Question. Thoughts do create on the level of the dream. Isn't it useful to allow and consciously utilize thought as our servant? As long as we don't identify as thought, for example, focusing on what is beautiful and loving, etc. I rest in God and choose to use thought.
Yeah, but what would you use it for? You don't know what anything's for. You don't know what your own best interests is. The things that you would desire would only hurt you. And the things that you think will hurt you will actually free you. Um, so who is going to wield thought effectively? And the answer is no one. So instead, go and rest in God and allow all suffering and ego fixation to dissolve. And as you slip automatically into knowing yourself as the holy place, the thoughts can empty not, you share that with your brothers. And whatever comes from here in terms of speaking or doing or deciding will automatically be loving and kind and helpful. So don't get involved in your thoughts at all. Um, let's take a quote. So this is from chapter 14, section 11, paragraph 6. Do not be concerned about how you can learn a lesson so completely different from everything that you have taught yourself. How would you know? Your part is very simple. You need only recognize that everything you learned you do not want. Now, if you start saying, well, I'm going to use thoughts to get what I've learned is a good thing, the course is going, no, 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 no. You don't know what anything's for. Don't do that. Forget asking your thoughts. Forget thinking you know what's right for you. You don't. Ask to be taught and do not use your experiences to confirm what you have learned. When your peace is threatened or disturbed in any way, say to yourself, I do not know what anything, including this, means, and so do I. I do not know how to respond to it, and I will not use my own past learning as the light to guide me now. By this refusal to attempt to teach yourself what you do not know, the guide whom God has given you will speak to you. He will take his rightful place in your awareness the instant you abandon it and offer it to him. So the minute you stop thinking you know what everything is for and stop thinking that you know what your own best interests are, the minute you let it all go, then from this holy place that thoughts can enter not, from the quiet center, a knowingness can come which meets the requirements of every moment. And it's automatic. It's there. The Course says God's voice speaks to me all during the day. So this knowingness, this obviousness of what the next thing to do is always here. It's drowned out by the thoughts telling me what's good and what's bad and what's right and what's wrong and what's going to make me happy and what's going to make me unhappy. That's the mess. That's the dream. That's the private world. The Course is going, you don't want any of that. Come home to the quiet center, which the world cannot add to and also cannot harm, has no effect on it. Come back here, because this is the only place peace and happiness is. You get here through forgiveness. This brings you home to the only place you'll ever know happiness. And from here, a response can come to the world, not a reaction. But the response is not born of a belief that I need something to change in the world so I can be happy. That's magic. And that will not make you happy. So find the happiness that requires nothing of the world through forgiveness, through coming home to the star, through surrender to thoughts and rediscovering what you are that thoughts can't harm. Because if you're suffering, well, you can be hurt by nothing but your thoughts. So stop identifying with them. Come home to the peace that's here. And from here, knowing can replace thinking. So you don't want to get caught in thinking you know what everything is for. You don't. That's what has us in the mess that we're in. The Course is going, no, 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 don't be getting involved in thoughts. Come home to the holy place that thoughts can enter not. Be right-minded by looking at what thoughts are doing without judgment of them. They're just thoughts. It's not you. You're what's witness to them without judgment, and that's where the happiness is. And from here, a response can come within the dream, but you're not looking for it to make you happy. If you are, you're still wrong-minded. You're still believing your thoughts. So from the place where we know the world cannot take this peace from me and it cannot add to this peace, from this knowing, then decision is automatic and effortless and kind and loving and helpful at the level of the world. But it's not so I can become somehow better. Only the ego is trying to better itself. The right mind, there's already peace here. So use forgiveness to rediscover peace, not magic in the world. That won't bring peace. So I hope that makes sense. Um, Maybe we'll take one more quote before we finish. Um, See if I can quickly find it. Lots of search results. Yeah, it's from chapter 26, section 6, paragraph 1. Anything in this world that you believe is good and valuable and worth striving for can hurt you and will do so. Now, the reason for this is because you think you're something that needs something to be whole. That's an ego. That's the wrong mind. The right mind doesn't need anything to be whole. So the Course is saying here, if you think something is worth having, that this desire is worthwhile, that's because you believe you're lacking. You think you're an ego. And if you go chasing after this thing you think will make you more complete, you're holding on to thought identification. You're holding on to conceptual identity. And you're looking, as the ego always is, for a way to solve the problem of itself and its misery. So the Course is going, don't stay in ego. Let your ego identification go in the Holy Spirit to remember the holy place where thoughts can enter not. Now there's nothing you need. And from here, decision is automatic and guided and helpful. But it's not to establish your happiness. So it doesn't mean nothing gets done in the world, but happiness is not sought anywhere except within. So again, chapter 26, just this the same reading again. Anything in this world you believe is good and valuable and worth striving for can hurt you and will do so because you still don't know who you are. Not because it has the power to hurt, but just because you have denied it is but an illusion and made it real. And it is real to you. It is not nothing, even though it is. And through its perceived reality has entered all the world of sick illusions. That you're a separate self, that you're lacking, that you're needing, that something changing in the world might be your salvation instead of going within. So, and through its perceived reality has entered all the world of sick illusions, all belief in sin, in power of attack, in hurt and harm, in sacrifice and death has come to you. None of that's in your right mind. But as long as you are out in the world looking for a way to fix yourself, you think you're an ego. And things like sickness and death and attack seem real. For no one can make one illusion real and still escape the rest. For who can choose to keep the ones that he prefers and find the safety that the truth alone can give? Who can believe illusions are the same and still maintain that even one is best? So we don't need to get involved in thoughts at all. When we exit thought identification, there's a knowingness that operates in the moment. We don't need to get involved in analysis. It will be obvious what the thing to do is. It won't require you diving back into an ego thought system and analyzing. That's not necessary. When we come home to our right mind, decision is automatic. It doesn't require analysis, doesn't require planning. Love automatically meets the needs of the moment through us. And that's what the Course is teaching. So at no point in time do we have to jump back into thoughts and go unconscious in them and believe in lack and desire and seeking and resisting and grasping and grievances and special love and special hate. No, we just come home to the holy place where thoughts can enter not, where everything's fine already. The world can add nothing to it, can take nothing from it. And from here, decision is automatic, but there's no investment in it. One more quote before we finish. Seek not outside yourself. Don't be listening to your thoughts. Don't be believing anything in the world changing will somehow bring you happiness. That seek and do not find. It's a lie that will keep you from the truth. Seek not outside yourself, for all your pain comes simply from a futile search for what you want, insisting where it must be found. What if it's not there? Do you prefer that you be right or happy? Be you glad that you are told where happiness abides and seek no longer elsewhere. You will fail, but it is given you to know the truth and not to seek for it outside yourself. So we come home to the star, to the holy place that thoughts can enter not, where all is well, where there's nothing to need. And from here, decision is automatic. We don't have to get involved. We'll know. It will be obvious what the obvious thing to do is, but there's no investment in it. And so that's what the course is teaching. So I hope that makes sense. So thank you for that question, Melissa. Guys, thanks a million for your attention. We are going to take a week off next week for Christmas, but I will catch up with you in the Facebook group and we will do it all again after the festivities are done. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thanks a million.